Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. I am Dr. Mina Ali, and I welcome you to the 2023 UN CSW 6-7 side event, Budgeting Gender Equality. I want to thank all of you for attending. Good morning, Fordham, Columbia, NYU. Good morning to all of the students that are here today that are wanting to hear and be enlightened to the wisdom of this masterclass that you are going to witness today. We have 4 outstanding women that are going to be coming to you, as you see on your screen, and they are going to be coming to you directly and intentionally to talk to you about doing this the right way, both solutions and answers. We're going to have questions and readiness of what it is that we are going to have today, and I welcome you to the establishing board and governing boards of each of the respected colleges, embassy ambassadors, consul generals, high commissioners, diplomats, dignitaries, honored guests, family members, supporters, and local attendees. I welcome you to this year's model as offered by the Federation of International Gender and Human Rights and those budgeting sponsors that has brought you the Budgeting Gender Equality program for today. I will be your host and moderator for today, and we will be highlighting 4 women that are orators in their own right, and they are offering our masterclass on today. If you will, could you join me in a moment of silence? Madam Bilquis, Dr. Bilquis, excuse me, if you would, could you open us up in prayer, please?
Thank you for the honor. Good morning, everyone. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of Allah, the most gracious, most merciful, we're thankful for today. We're thankful that we're in His presence. We're thankful for this day and our lives and the presence of our abilities and functions to exist and also to impact others. We pray that everyone goes away with a message today and everyone's soul is inspired to impact the world so that it's better than what we seek to have and than what we have today. Thank you.
Ameen, ameen, Allahu ameen. Thank you so very much. I really appreciate that. And now we'll have opening remarks from our beautiful Queen Mother, Dr. Catherine Hall Trujillo, who is a Charles R. Drew University of Medicine and Science professor and public health administrator and traditional midwife. Queen Mother has come to us pre-recorded as she is in Cuba at the moment, helping women overcome this same adversity on the ground. Can you hear her? Okay, I'm trying to figure out if the volume is on my end. Hold on, I'm going to see. Okay.
and the work that we're doing to co-create better. Hello, Fire Family, and welcome to our special event today to celebrate the wonderful world of women and the work that we're doing to co-create a better world. I'd like to give a special thank you to the United Nations for sponsoring this event and all the events that are occurring this month. And I'd like to give a special heartfelt thank you to our fearless leader, Dr. Amina Ali, who actually dreamed and brought into fruition the Federation of International Gender and Human Rights, which we all refer to as FIRE. And yes, we are on fire. I'm here today just to remind you what great work you're doing at a time when the great work is so needed and called for. The idea of gender and human rights and equity is not just the frosting on the cake, where we are right now and what we have to deal with and what we are needed to deal with more than ever before runs the gamut from climate change to even trying to make sure that we find peace in the world, that the moment that we are now doesn't cultivate into World War III. And so I appreciate, and the world appreciates the work that you are doing to look inward and to look outward, to look at yourselves and look at each other, and to understand that we actually can break through those barriers, those things that separate us, and we could create unity, and we could work together with one heart, one mind, and one set of hands. So I want you to enjoy this event. I give thanks for every one of you that are participating in it. You are fabulous. All of you know that I am president of the fan club, and I am just so inspired and encouraged by the work that you're doing, by the passion that you bring, and by the hope that you bring and that you keep alive. So go right ahead and do what you're called to do, knowing that all is well. And when all is said and done, we are bringing a new world. We're carrying it. We're pregnant with possibilities, and it is being birthed as we speak. Thank you.
Okay, for those that are not familiar with the insight of why this is necessary, the Federation of International Gender and Human Rights was started on a mission of helping a few women in a local area. We started in 2010, but was official in 2015, in knowing that we are able to be a social impact organization as relates to women. We serve women because of women and for women in the instruments that we hold dear and true of our work. We deal with women that are victims and new survivors of female genital mutilation, child brides, those women that are sexually or humanly trafficked, and those women that are birthing through fistula, which is the outcome of the FGM tragedy. Many of the women that come to us are asylum seekers, are vetted through immigration or migratory practices, are IDPs or war-torn victims, and those women that are simply refugees that have been left or unkept in developing areas post-war. These women need services. These women need assistance. And the rural women that come to us need our support. So we are coming today to give answers to those that are looking to be the solutions for certain areas, who are looking to be the greater hope for women that are in need. And today you are going to hear those solutions. Our mission is very, very simple. It is designed and ordained to be a one-woman show And we're not talking just this woman. We're talking every woman within the sound of my voice who has the ability, who has the audacity, and who has the courage to stand up and raise the voice of muted, oppressed, and silenced women that need the help. Each one of you are tasked with the motion and the need to be that voice, to be raised for other women. And we are going to give you insight as to why this is here today. The purpose of our panel today is to instruct, to guide, to mentor, and to be of good credence to the experience that these women bring to the table. You are to use this, especially those college students that are studying and learning in this field, to be of good service to the women through this experience. Not everything is going to be taught in the books, and these women are going to bring what actually works and what is real in society. So I asked you, I admire you in what you're doing in the service work of education, but I implore you to listen to their adages in what it is that they are offering and who they are in the work that they are bringing. So thank you so very much for your time, and I look forward to the governance. Our panelists are going to be given 5 to 6 minutes in each of their speeches. We are going to have 2 questions each. They're going to have round 1, which is the first question that will be moderated by myself. They will answer the question, and then we'll move to the next speaker. In round 2, we will just have I call it a very rapid round where I just call their names and they are introduced again for their question. Either way, the panelists will be given the same amount of time, and then we will have a question and answer at the end. Again, those that are streaming in from the CSW feed, those that are coming in from Columbia, Fordham, and NYU, please make sure that you put your questions in the chat on your stream so that I will be able to read them aloud, and then each panelist respectively will be able to answer the question. Please make sure that you label it general or specific for a panelist, and I will read it out loud and give them the opportunity to give some of these questions some due diligence. Thank you so very much. Our first panelist is none other than our own Madam Ambassador, Dr. Bilquis O. Williams, MD. She is a public health physician, a director of Canadian Public Health Association, former mission ambassador to the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and our diplomatic ambassador to the Federation of International Gender and Human Rights. She comes with a huge following through public health. She is a mentor to many, and she offers great insight to the Canadian constituency that she serves. Madam Ambassador, I ask that you come on telling us a little bit about yourself and answering your first question. What is public health policy in Canada as it pertains to reproductive rights and menses care? Please give a few examples as to the rights of women as it pertains to supplies and its access. Good morning.
Good morning, everyone. As always, the struggle with the mic is real. So I will speak to this, but briefly, I've been asked to give a brief introduction of myself. So currently, I'll just highlight one thing that I think is relevant to this conversation, which is that I currently serve as a policy advisor for the Ontario Ministry of Health. And this has given me great insight into how policies affect our day-to-day lives. And as Dr. Amina Ali or anyone else who has met me in the past knows, my life's work and my target in life is to get to the policy-making tables and influence the decisions that affect all of us all. And as always, my goal is to make the world a better place and to make the world the place that we wish to see. It's enough to make comments and make complaints, but what are you doing as an individual to be that change that you wish to see? So I will just jump right to the meat of the matter. So on any given day, about 800 million women and girls around the world are menstruating. And as we all know, menstruation is not a one-day event. So this is capturing data from one of those days. So it could be more on any given day. So, but the main issue and the pervasive problem with all those 800 million women around the world is lack of access to hygiene products. Even in Canada, even in countries as developed as Canada, there's a growing Canadian movement, to provide free sanitation and sanitary items and products for women and girls, especially in schools. And which also involves removing taxes from those products. But as we know, there's a difference between government aspirations and the actual events in real life. Like when you go to the grocery store or when you go to a feminine store to buy something, have those taxes been eliminated in truth? But also, we're forgetting that there are other things that come with buying a sanitary product. You won't just, stick a sanitary product onto your face or onto your privates. You will need a pant to do that. You will need to wear boxer briefs to do that. Some women's periods are heavier than others. And so some are more costlier than others. And so even if they were providing you sanitary products for free at school, it's very unlikely that it will be the appropriate size for a flow. It would also be very unlikely that you find the appropriate amount for your flow. While I schooled in the US, and Boston University is one of the places in the United States where I can assure you there's free sanitary products in the bathrooms every day. But one time I visited this bathroom on the main campus, and it was a fancy bathroom and everything, but you could only get one sanitary pad at a time. And it was this, medium-sized one. And as we know, many women suffer fibroids, endometriosis, and a gamut of other, gynecological issues. So that part wouldn't do nothing for me. So it meant I had to wait to get another one or just altogether go away. Because if it didn't dispense another one, then that's it for that day. So that brings us to a number of other issues. But before I delve into that issue, let me continue on this trajectory. And so the Canadian government, which is a very proactive government, as I can say that for myself as a policy advisor, because I see the work that we do in our unit every day, especially in the Ministry of Health. So I can assure you that when the Canadian government says that they're going to do something, they're heavily invested in it. But also, that's why I'm here to remind my minister every time I write a report and say, oh, so in lieu of the conversation that we had before, so please be reminded that you did promise a certain $1 billion to this project or to this conversation. And so there's an organization, or how do I put it, a movement called Enrich that provides dignity kits to children or women and girls in schools. It also sensitizes teachers, thank you, and establishments about menstrual hygiene and, how best to support them. I'm sorry, before I move on, so as part of the things that we're doing in Canada is to acknowledge the rights of those who have been eliminated or disadvantaged in the past. So I would quickly like to do a short land acknowledgement from Toronto, where I reside. So Toronto, which is what Toronto used to be known as, is the traditional territory of many groups, including the Mississaugas of the Credit and the Chippewa or Ojibwe of the Anishinaabe nations, the Haudenosaunee, and the Huron-Wendat. It is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. We acknowledge the harms of the past and the present, and we dedicate ourselves to work and listen to First Nation and Métis communities in the spirit of reconciliation and partnership. We're grateful for the opportunity to live, work, and learn on this land and commit to caring for this land. I implore everyone here to continue to learn about Indigenous peoples and the struggles and adversities that they've faced in the past and as we move through our world. Thank you very much for allowing me to quickly do that. So as we know, all of these things are not isolated. When you talk about one topic, then it affects and impacts another topic. And this is why I always do my land acknowledgement, also to remind myself that usually we speak about women and girls, but when we speak about women and girls, and especially as a Black person, people are quickly reminded, of people in my demographic. However, I want to remind you of the numerous people, numerous families, women and girls that are of indigenous origin that suffer great poverty, that suffer great discrimination and disparities in their day-to-day life, that even increase their own ability to access the hygiene products. We struggle, but there are people who even struggle worse than us. And I want to bring that to our four thoughts. So maternal mortality, poor health, disenfranchisement of women's rights are directly related to the lack of access to hygiene products. So I know that we're all thinking, oh, what has menstrual products got to do with all of these things? And I'll tell you a story. So today, imagine that I'm a 13-year-old girl and I have to go to school, but then I got my period. I don't have a pad to go to school with. I only have pieces of clothing, but my flow is heavy, as is my mother's and my grandmother's. We usually menstruate for 7 days, and our flow is really heavy, which means I have to change frequently. I go to school, but in the first period, my clothes is already soaked, and so that means I have to change. My school does not have a running water tap that I can use to clean out my clothes or put it in a bag. I'm not even allowed to exit the class because I'm a girl, and I might be going to meet boys in the back if I exit my class. Right. And then I have to sit there, and maybe when I stand up, my dress is drenched in blood. And then everyone starts to point at me and laugh. And my teacher is upset that I got stained by the blood that I didn't, inflict on myself. It's not like I brought a knife to class, and then he's like, oh, you're a dirty girl. You're so disgusting. Get out of my class. And then I have to stay at home, because when I get home and tell my mom that I was sent out of class because I got a stained dress, she's like, I told you not to go because you're going to be stained. You could have sat on the pot for the next 7 days. And so I go back home. I'm not allowed to go back to school. I don't even want to go back to school because I'm ashamed and I've been embarrassed, right? And so I miss one week of class. And then my mother actually realizes that it's way easier if I stay at home for that 1 week, because she doesn't have to give me money for lunch to go to school. I could just eat at home and I could help her sell her wares while I'm sitting at home. So then my mother's not really encouraged to send me to school where I bring nothing home except for disgrace and shame to the family, because when all the other kids from the village school come home or from the city school come home, they're pointing at me and saying, oh, that's the girl that. So now that's the story. So there's so many things. And then comes along this man that says, how about your pads? I heard you had an incident today. I'm very sorry about that. But here's a big box of things that when I use, I actually don't get stained. I could just change it out and I don't have to wash anything, right? So these are the things that just predispose children, women and girls to gamut of problems: unwanted pregnancies later in life, STIs, continued disenfranchisement, gender violence, just because of one thing: I couldn't get a pad. Thank you. And I'd like to leave that for you to think about.
Thank you. Thank you so very much. And we have so many questions that we have for you. One young lady actually from NYU said, in public health, knowing that this is a matter that is on the forefront of most of those of us that is studying public health, how will the volunteerisms be of true effect to the women if we're not able to gain them in access to the areas that need it? That's a good question. We're going to hold that to the end, but Dr. Bilquis, that is a question that maybe you'll be able to answer first. How are we actually to get direct access? And what are some of the things that maybe you can jot down in your waiting that can allow them to gain great access? And I guess she's saying that because she's here in New York, and she knows that people in New York don't need access to this. They have it. So how is it that she's going to get it? So that'll be a part of your question for round 2. Next, we have Madam Sarah Boateng, midwife and menstrual health advocate, 40 Under 40 Africa Awards nominee, educator, author, and social activist from Juaben, Ghana. Yes, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you. And Madam Boateng, your question is, midwifery and mental health care is really on the front lines of repro rights and menses care. Please give a few examples of what you see in your day-to-day as it relates to the atrocities of lack of supplies and its access before and after pregnancy. Please give a little bit about yourself before you answer the question. Thank you.
Thank you so much, thank you, Dr. Minali. I really appreciate this opportunity to add my voice to this issue. As you already said, my name is Sarah Nkansa. I'm a practicing midwife in Koforidua and also a mental health and hygiene advocate as well. That's why I also host a reproductive health show in Ghana on radio. So that's what I do. I used to add my voice to some of these issues that we are having in Ghana. Honestly, period poverty is on the rise in rural communities and it's no joke. But I've had the opportunity to go to rural communities for at least 5 years and I've heard stories from girls. Some of them do not know what it means to even menstruate, and some people literally would have to curse nature for creating them as women, like coming into the world as women because every month they have to go through the hassle of getting at least a material to use. Some people go as far as using foam, mattress. They cut a piece of mattress to use during their period. Some of them use leaves, plants, and all these are because they have the lack of education on what menstruation is. And we try as much as possible that when we get to these communities, we are able to educate them. But the question is, how can we sustain the supplying them with menstrual health and hygiene kits? Because for this year alone, there are a lot of NGOs who have not been able to go out because of high taxes and suicide. So these girls are left alone and they still go back to using their drugs, go back to using their leaves. There are some girls we've met and towards in their menses, they have nothing at all. They are not wearing anything. They are left to bleed. And as Madam Rachel, sorry if I didn't get the name right, because Williams rightly said, they went to class and it transcends their confidence. They're not able to stand up and able to speak for themselves because I'm sold, I can't get up, I'll be stigmatized, and it will affect my confidence. So maybe I should stay at home. My parents are happy because I'm not going to even spend. And some of these things, when we look at the anatomy of the female reproductive system, we say that women have short uterus, so it means that we are prone to ascending infections very fast. When these girls who are naive about some of these things use these unhygienic materials, it later prone them to a lot of UTIs and reproductive health problems. Those who are bold enough to use disposable materials, those who are, let's say, rich among the rural girls are able to get the disposable materials, will not work for long hours because they won't get the money to buy new ones and change. So if she's a heavy bleeder, she would have to use one disposable sanitary pad for the whole day instead of her changing. And you know that these disposable sanitary pads also contain chemicals, and these chemicals have a debilitating effect on the health of these girls. It can go as far as affecting the ovaries and allowing them become infertile in future, affecting their fertility, affecting pregnancy and everything. So later in the future, they come to the hospital and they are there treating fertility, but they don't know that it's from the use of these disposable sanitary pads, how bad they use some of these disposable sanitary pads. So in my few years as a midwife and in a few years that I advocated for these mental health and hygiene, I met girls who have not been able to really use the material necessary for menstruation and they come in with genital warts. Some of these words are so serious, it's so bad, and you know what they are. They just come and tell you, I feel some itches down there, I don't know what it is. You go and look at it and it's so bad, and you know that it is because of long hours of wearing disposable sanitary pads, not using the right materials, not washing, hygienic um, use of these things. And then we go to the central part of Ghana, that's the central region. Teenage pregnancy is on the rise because they want to keep up with the society. They want to belong, so they need to get some of these disposable sanitary pads. Then they tend to sleep with men. They tend to sleep with these men who would later act as their supporters and give them disposable sanitary pads. We've recorded a high number of mortality deaths. The ages between 19, no, 15 to 19. Last year alone, we recorded a lot of maternal mortality because, you know, these young girls do not have a stronger pelvis to even carry pregnancy to term. And because they need sanitary pads, they go in and sleep with these men, and the end is serious. And also, when we come to postpartum pregnancy, we know that pregnant women also, postpartum women also need menstrual kits or these things like sanitary pads to help them go through their postpartum successfully when they have their lochia coming out, their rubra and all that. Some people as far as that they come in with old ones as well. And we know that when postpartum, if you use some of these old rats and you get these infections, it goes a long way of you go a long way of getting the postpartum bleeding, PPH, postpartum hemorrhage, and if not controlled, you can lose your life. So this mental care before and after pregnancy um, is a problem that we need to really tackle. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so very much. Yes, we have 4 or 5 questions coming through as you were talking. Your mic was a bit muffled, but they got the gist of what you were saying. And you got about 4 or 5 questions coming to you during the question and answer. So I'll send them your way directly because they're speaking about midwifery specifically. Okay. So our next speaker is none other than Lady Juliet and Adansi, gender and human rights advocate for the Republic of Ghana, gender and youth development, and girl child educator and leader. She is from Accra, and she is going to be bringing us a great understanding of what we are in our advocacy. And this is going to be really, really huge. We will follow up our last speaker, who was our keynote for the day, and then we will close out round 1 with her. But lady, Adansi, if you would, could you give us a little bit about yourself? And then please let us know a little bit more about this question that we have for you. You work with young women to expose and expand the best in their repro rights and menses care. Give us a few examples of what you see in your day-to-day as relates to the stories of lack of supplies and its access to proper menses care.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Amina. It's actually very fulfilling to see people putting young girls together and having the voices of young people, heard. And I really appreciate that I find myself in this space from listening to the first speaker right to myself. Thank you for giving us this space. So I'm Lady Juliet Nyako Adansi, and as Dr. Amina rightly said, I'm a gender and youth advocate. I'm also into girl child education advocacy, and I'm also into social and economic empowerment for women. And I am an empowerment self-defense instructor. And finally, I'm so proud to say I'm a FI trained by Dr. Amina to be a sexual and gender-based violence instructor. Okay, so back to the question. so I think that for period poverty or menstrual care, that's not something that I really paid attention to whilst in my advocacy work until a friend of mine got posted to the northern part of Ghana during her national service. And then she started complaining to me how some of these girls, they are even surprised that she's using pad, a sanitary pad during her menstruation. And it was normal that some of these girls were using leaves, using used clothes and rags and everything. And she was so overwhelmed. She reached out to me, Juliet, what can we do to support these girls? Because although I can give them my sanitary pad, but there's little to what I as an individual can do. And she mentioned how it's even difficult to get some of these sanitary pads to buy in the various supermarkets and shops, even if you have the money to. And I was just like, this is an illusion. This can't be true unless I started reading about it and I realized that this is very real. So I read that from a study that was done by UNICEF Ghana and other collaborators that 95% of girls in the rural areas of Ghana were missing school due to menstruation. And that's like a very huge number, not 50%, not 60%, but 95% of girls, which like it was abnormal for me to hear. And only for me to launch out my project, which is currently running the Keep Her in School project. And when I started running out the project with support of our partners, Girl Up, Lotun for Foundation, we have the AGTI Heavenly Support Fund supporting us, the Pearl Safe Haven, the Lady Ghana supporting us. And after we did about 5 to 6 outreaches, we realized that even in the urban cities, there were the challenge of access to appropriate sanitary products. But beyond then, looking at the advocacy, I've realized that it also goes beyond giving people the sanitary pad, as menstruation goes beyond the flow of blood. That's what I always say. So as women, we realize that there's a whole lot of changes that happens in our body, in our system, psychologically, physically, when we are menstruating. But then mostly when we're advocating for menstrual rights, we don't look at these things. And most girls who are found outside the classroom, some of them is not because they do not have the right product to use, but basically because maybe they don't feel comfortable. We went to one of the schools in Kumasi, and some of the girls told us that truth is that my mom buys me the sanitary pad, but I personally choose not to wear it because I don't feel comfortable wearing it. When I'm walking around, I feel that there is something down there and I don't feel comfortable wearing it. These are things that we need to talk about. Some of them say that I feel something moving through my breast. I feel something in my abdominal area, and I don't feel comfortable sitting in class. And my teacher will ask me to sit down if I stand. Different people have different reactions when they are menstruating. There are different things that happens in their bodies, in their minds, and I think these things should be paid attention to. So as we advocate around providing them with the supplies, making the products accessible, how do we help these girls to understand their body and to understand that if you feel something in your pains in your breast, it is normal. It is because you're menstruating. Because there are men who are predators, pedophiles, who tell some of these girls, if you feel something in your breast, come and let me massage it for you. These girls must understand what happens when they are menstruating. And then the last thing I would want to tackle is the tax on these period products. I mean, period is not luxury, but in Ghana, we have a total of 37.5% tax on it, with 20% luxury tax and 17.5% VAT. I mean, what's luxurious about my flow? What's luxurious about my pain? I mean, I'm not taxed. Why should I be taxed for just being a woman? That is very abnormal. And I know that the Youth Task Force from Ford Foundation is doing a lot of work and advocacy around it. And I'll just employ everyone who is listening to me to try and support their work, raise the voices high for these unreasonable taxes to be scrapped off. Thank you.
Thank you. Very succinct, very quick. I love it. Thank you so very much, Lady Juliet. We are going to have your questions for you during our question and answer session. So be prepared. We have 2 questions thus far that have been asked for you specifically. So we'll give them to you during that time. Thank you so much. Last but certainly not least, we have our keynote speaker for today, Madam Pamela Abbey, Women and Girls Advocate, early childhood educator, emotional intelligence practitioner, and she too is in Accra. Madam Abbey, I want you to please give us a little bit of a background on yourself And then answer this question as your question for today. What was the passion behind your world famous statement, no girl, child, or woman should need a budget to bleed? What was the trigger for that powerful statement?
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Amina Ali, for this platform. Thank you, everybody. All females observed, all other distinguished protocols observed. I am Pamela Abbey, a woman, a feminist activist, and a human rights defender. As a gender advocate, I'm passionate about empowering women and girls wherever I find myself. I am a child protection expert. I'm currently volunteering as the campaign lead with Girl Child Hygiene, a non-profit organization here in Ghana, Kenya, Malawi, and in the UK. We provide sanitary products and promote menstrual hygiene education for the girl child in rural and semi-urban Ghana. I would like to borrow the lyrics from Alicia Keys' Girl on Fire. I would like to pull off the environment. She's just a girl and she's on fire. Harder than a fantasy, lonely like a highway. She's living in a world and it's on fire. Filled with catastrophe, but she knows she can fly away. Oh, she's got both feet on the ground and she's burning it down. Oh, and she's got both feet on the ground and she's not backing down. This girl is on fire. This girl is on fire. She's walking on fire. This girl is on fire.
Yes.
Bleeding. I feel so emotional right now. Bleeding is not a luxury. No girl child or woman should have to budget to bleed. Why do I have to pay more to exist simply because I'm a girl or a woman? Why should females pay money? Money that could be spent on other important things like food, bills, or transport, for sanitary products, when we do not get a choice for having periods. We don't get to decide not to have it. We have to go through most of these symptoms every month. Cramps that can be so severe, they can keep you at night. Mood swings, leg cramps, acne breakouts, bloating, headaches or nausea. How is it fair that we need to pay money for something that we didn't ask for? Something that we don't want. It is highly unfair to us women and girls to have to pay for bleeding on a monthly basis for a natural cycle that occurs in our lives as women and girls. Is this not a violation to our rights to reproductive freedom and health? Breathing is my right as a human being, as a girl, as a woman. Menstruation is as critical and as normal as breathing clean, fresh air. It is our human right as women and girls to breathe clean, fresh air and bleed with dignity and peace for free, with absolutely no strings attached to that effect. As such, Dr. Amina Ali, all other protocols observed, no girl child or woman should need to have a budget to bleed. Thank you.
Sorry, I went on mute. I apologize. Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Oh, Madam Abby, that was amazing. I didn't even know you had that talent. You know, we got to promote that. So thank you so much for that. And thank you so much for the opportunity to hear you speak on this. And that is a most profound statement. I have been using that since you said it to me. And I have had so many people say, where'd you get that from? I said, Madam Pamela Abbey, I give you all the credit. Thank you so very much for that. I really appreciate it. We have some live stream questions, of course, from Colombia, and I'm having it handed to me as we speak. I'm going to go down for each question. I'm going to give you guys maybe about a minute each, literally, because of time and time variance. We have to get to round two, and we have to get off by 11:30 Eastern Standard. So we have maybe about 40 minutes left. So just know that each question is going to be about a minute. So really hit the points. Dr. Bill Keys, I want you to answer your question first, and then I'll go to Lady Juliet, and then Madam Boateng, and then Madam Abby. So if you can, please give us a few nuggets, some gems, if you will. Dr. Bill Keys. Is she still with us?
Sorry, would you like
Oh,
for me to respond to that question, or did you have
yes,
something else you'd like me to?
Yes, ma'am.
So thank you very much for that question. And someone had asked me about volunteering and how volunteering can translate to real life impact. So one of the things that I would say is when you volunteer, number one is that you ensure that you educate yourself about the reasons why you're volunteering and why your presence is relevant, and educate others around you about things that they may consider unimportant. One of the things that I realized when I first started to volunteer, I've been volunteering informally as a child for a long time, but when I first moved to Canada, my first thing was to volunteer in my free time, because there isn't a lot of social events in Canada. So as part of my social life, I volunteer at hospitals. And then when I started volunteering there, I realized that although we were volunteering, there was a lot of things that other family members, someone speaking, I don't know. There were lots of family members that were unaware of a number of things that affected the outcome of health ventures or just health encounters. So one of the things is educate yourself and educate others. Travel is education, because as you said, you know, that many people have access to these things in New York, but when you travel, you realize that there are many people in the world that don't have access to it. And because you've experienced the other side of it, you can how do I put it, suggest changes that could imply that that could result in access to other people. Also, if you've lived in underserved areas where the lack is greater, when you come to places where they have the resources that you didn't have access to in your native place or in your host communities, you can recommend ways to make that system that's existing more sustainable. So I'll give you a clear example of that. Where I live in Canada, they give us, like most people have access to like a monthly payment that the government gives you, either an OTB or a GST rebate, something like that. So you get about roughly $100 from the government every month, right? However, in my home country, Nigeria, there's no such thing. We don't have social resources. We don't have social amenities. So if you ever go out of a job, there's no EI. There's nothing to fall back on. So what I do is use my experience as a Canadian to inform the government in my country. I write petitions. I write to the governor directly. I have the Minister of Health's number on my WhatsApp, and I tell him, oh, this is a new improvement that's been done in Canada. I realize it's very easy for us to do this in Nigeria with such and such and such and such steps. And really, when you go to Lagos now, you can see many of those things that I've suggested. So do not underestimate yourself. Do not. You can make changes where you are. Also, create So many of us are creatives. So some people have vocational skills, they can sew. If you're able to sew, create reusable pads that are washable and send them to an orphanage or send them to a women's center or send them to, ask me. I can be your points person. Where can I send this to make sure that they get to the right places? Donate to NGOs that are on the ground, not NGOs that are just like worldwide and they're just like, oh, build a well in one place. And you never know if your money goes there. Do your homework. So research institutions and organizations on the ground that actually do the work. They have pictures on Instagram that show you every weekend they go out and share 3,000 sanitary pads in the community. Donate to those ones, follow them instead of following, random TikTokers. And then create, as I said, soap, even hand washing soap. You can give it to people in the villages so that they have utilities to wash and reuse their reusable pads. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Thank you so much. Wow, that's amazing. And see, just taking what you already have and bringing it to another area that doesn't have is the main event. That's showing that whatever it is that is working in your country can be repeated. So thank you so very much, Dr. Williams. Madam Juliet, excuse me, Lady Juliet, I have a question for you. She says she's coming in from Fordham. She says, I am coming into international law and I want to mentor in places like Ghana. Is it a big commodity to mentor, or is this something that I can co-create with you? Great question.
Okay, yeah, so I think that is something that I can easily co-create with her, since mentorship is very ideal, and I just look at my life and everything that's happening. The fact that today I can raise my voice, today I'm here speaking as a CSW 67 side event, is because I had mentors like Dr. Amina who I could fall on them. Dr. Amina would tell you, sometimes I don't know what to do. I'm thinking of something. I need to make a decision concerning my career. I just run to her and tell her, so this is what's currently happening in my life. And then she tell me, okay, we've also had to take some of these major decisions. So mentorship is very key, especially for we African girls. So that's something that I can easily cooperate with you. So I could share my contact details in the chat.
Actually, all of you can. Yeah, thank you.
Dr. to take it from here.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely. If all of you, while you're waiting to speak for round two, can put your name, your email, and maybe your website, so everyone can have a taste of what you do and then be able to see your site. If everyone can do that, Madam Boateng, you're next. And actually, someone is willing to do something for you. We have someone from Colombia that says, can you please ask Madam Boateng to send her name and email, as we are wanting to ship some postpartum period pads and diapers for the women, especially those in rural areas and those that are wanting to have peace of mind after baby. So there's somebody that wants to donate. So I'm just going to send that to you, see, and that's one of the reasons why you need to put your name and email in there. I'm going to send her your information. She'll get in touch with you, and she will definitely have that that question. But the question here is for you, Madam Boateng, is can you please give me an estimate about how much you would need if we were to donate? So that's a quick answer.
Okay, thank you so much for that question. Honestly, I wouldn't be able to give an estimation on how much I would need if someone to donate, but in the person's own capacity, whatever the person would be able to give out to help these girls and women in rural communities will be well appreciated. Thank you.
No, thank you, Madam Boateng. So that actually answers the question, because whatever you bring is going to be more than what was originally given. So thank you. Yeah, that's really, really true. Okay, Madam Abby, your question, actually there's a two-part question, but I'm only going to give you one part for the interest of time. She mentioned the fact that, well, actually I can give you both parts, but she said your solo career is ahead of you. And then she said that the second part of it was that she wants to make sure that you understand that this is a true piece to this. And I guess she's framing it like this, and I'll give you the second part of it. She said, you mentioned that you are coming aboard to help reduce the tax. She said, is there a participle that can be aligned with other countries to allow us to eliminate the tax? So in other words, I guess really quickly, is there a way that government can work to eliminate the tax, or is this something that we'll just have to fight to reduce the tax? Madam Abby? You're on mute.
Yes. Yes. So first and foremost, I would like to ask Dr. Amina a question.
Absolutely.
Since you work with the United Nations,
correct.
The human rights obligations related to menstrual health and hygiene is included in the existing human rights, such as the right to education, health, water, and sanitation. But there is no self-standing right to menstrual health hygiene. So I think that would be a start to that.
Nice.
If there is a self-standing right to menstrual health and hygiene.
Yes, I like that.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah,
That is amazing.
that is the start. Yes.
That is the start.
Yeah, that's the start.
Thank you so
And
much.
yeah, that would be the start.
Yeah. I appreciate that
I don't
because it
know.
allows them
the
to
question,
know. Sorry, go ahead.
Yes. So if we have a self-standing right for menstrual hygiene and health, then government will now be, it will set the pace for government to take the tax off, I believe.
Oh, okay. Okay. Sorry. I thought we lost connection. Okay. Thank you. Yes. And I agree. The United Nations should do a little bit more. We have a thing in the African Union called the Maputo, MAPUTO. And for those college students, it's called the Maputo Protocol. And if you Google it, it was a document that was created by the African Union in 2003. It has since been ratified and adopted by the United Nations. And it is the first document. It's almost like the Bill of Rights for women of African descendancy. And one of the things that I really enjoy in reading that document is it specifies and very, very specific to the products that we are talking about today. However, what it doesn't say is that it will work to that. So I think when you talked about the United Nations, I think we should go to the African Union first in that, because if we got it there, it would be ratified and seen through the lens of the UN. So I agree the United Nations needs to step up on this, because through the Declaration of Human Rights, it was never even reported, never even mentioned, and never ever written down as even a point in the Declaration of Human Rights, when we only have the two genders, the male and the female. So we would think that that would have been included in there, especially under the duress when the Declaration of Human Rights was written and the problems that were faced there. So you're absolutely right. And I agree with you. So thank you so very much for that. Okay, so we're going to go to our final round. Yes, thank you. Yes, you're right. You're right. We're going to go to our final round. Each of you will have a question. This time, instead of 5 to 6 minutes, you'll only have 3 to 4 minutes due to the time to answer the question. So please make sure that your answers are succinct. Of course, we're going to start with Lady Juliet, and we're going to have her answer this question. Ghana needs support as well, as we have heard. So please speak to your future plans and efforts and the way we can support you to close the equity gap.
Okay, so thank you so much. So yeah, there's a lot of support that Ghana really needs around that. And being someone who is much interested in girls' education, currently I'm running the Keeper in School project, which was rolled out in 2020-2021. And this year we've had our first 2 outreaches in the Ashanti region, where we gave them sanitary products, school bags, school uniforms, SIs books, and then some new curriculum textbooks as well. So if you have sanitary products, school essentials that you would want to support, we are currently very open to accept that. And then we are also currently about to roll out our Girls in Coding project to involve more girls in technology so that they would have the mental know-how and then be well positioned to also innovate products and services that can help to promote girls' rights the more. So you can support the Girls in Coding program in Ghana in any ways and means. Maybe as a programmer would want to teach the girls virtually with tablets, computers, anything at all that you deem fit. So currently that is what I'm open for. And then I'm also open for any mentorship that has to do with girls, especially in Africa. Thank you.
You are amazing. That is wow. And she was right on point. So thank you so very much, Lady Juliet. And that is something we want to recognize, the things that are needed and necessary. So when you put your name and your email in there, I will send it on to the schools and they will reach out directly to see what it is that they can offer. So thank you again. Next is Dr. Williams. Dr. Williams, your question is, other than just send money, please speak to a useful plan, effort, or way we can support the underserved Canadian women that would allow access to close this gap.
Thank you. So I prepared for that question. So number one is to ensure that we keep more girls in school so that in later years, they're more economically productive and they contribute to our society as opposed to becoming a burden. So ways to do that. One, family planning resources for men and women. And I know we're talking about girls today, but men and women, because as we know, FIRE has always advocated that men have a part to play in the future of women. And the reason I say this is because the pressure is always on the woman to, keep the family, decide how many number of kids and everything. But if you don't have access to menstrual utilities, and this is a work in progress, and because menstrual utilities are, they're not reusable, they're usually expendable, and they're expenses that you can't account for. Why don't we help the men to do family planning so that you don't have to worry about all of that postpartum hemorrhage that you have to use 8 pads a day? Because as a midwife, she knows that the way that we assess postpartum hemorrhage, is we count the number of pads that are full that we put in the woman. So we're counting, she should only be bleeding like 1 pad a day by now, but she's still bleeding 8 pads a day. Now that's a thing, but that pad is not reusable. You have to throw it away, especially after postpartum. I realize that we can do reusable pads on menstrual cycles, but not when you've just had a baby, because that increases the risk of infection. Also, who's going to be washing those pads? Definitely not the woman that's still on the bed. So we have to look at the practicality of some of these things sometimes. So in doing that, we'll be helping to stabilize the economic gap, and also just touching on equity issues that cause women to continue to struggle with the gender pay gap. Because number one, women are paid less, but we have more money. We have to spend more money for things that have no value in the end to us. Right. And this is why now the world is saying we don't have a lot of young people, especially in Canada. By 2035, more than a sizable amount, more than 30% of our population will be older persons, and we don't have enough children to cover that gap. And so if I would rather use pills instead of menstruating every month, and the government is not supporting me for it. I don't get free pads and I don't get tax rebates for it. Instead, I have to pay tax to buy those products. So increase the pay, reduce the gender pay gap, and then pay attention to women and poverty. And we can do this by ourselves. So when you see another woman struggling, teach her skills that you have that can empower her. Bring her to the table, bring her to the audiences where her market or her talent is important and can contribute, and she can get money for that. For example, I sit on a number of boards, and I'm usually one of the youngest Black women, even just the only Black person on those boards. My duty is to make sure that I bring another Black person, another Black young person, favorably a woman, who can come to that board and shadow me and sit on that board and get paid, because people get paid about $1,000 a year for sitting on boards, just dishing advice. And usually as a Black person, your lived experience is enough as advice. Don't even bother about your qualifications, because before you get to the qualifications, you're already talking like real life stuff that you go through on a day-to-day. Now, eliminate barriers for girls wherever you are. Eliminate barriers for girls wherever you are. That's incredibly important. You wouldn't realize it, but there are many barriers for girls. Even in graduate school, they're more likely to offer admissions to men than to females. So eliminate barriers. They're tangible things. But as I said, you need to invest in educating yourself, paying attention to your environment, and just being dedicated to being to creating an impact. Also, I've shared my LinkedIn profile with Dr. Amina Ali. Please feel free to shoot me a message on LinkedIn. I'm very active on LinkedIn. Follow me and just see the work that I do. Also reach me and ask me tangible questions about how to navigate these issues that we brought up today. Thank you.
You are most welcome. Thank you, Dr. Williams. And I know you're such a busy woman in Canada with all that you do, but I know that there are going to be people that are listening to this here in the US, as well as on the CSW live stream from around the world, that are going to hear this and be moved by it. So thank you so very much. Speaking of that, I have to do my due diligence in thanking those that are on the CSW live stream. Ladies, we have about 917 people listening to you at this moment right now through that live stream. On top of the well over, I'll do an estimate and say 150 people on each of the, 150 total from Columbia, NYU, and Fordham, which are the students that are on the live stream that are listening to this conference as you hear it. So just know over 1,000 people are listening to your voice. They're listening to your message, and they're heeding what it is that you are needing to say. So I thank you so very much for this. And I thank you so very much for your time. Madam Laurencia, can you please put your question in the chat, and we will be able to read it aloud at the very end. Thank you so very much. I appreciate it. Next is, we are going to have our next question being asked by Madam Abby, our keynote speaker for today. Madam Abby, your question is, speak to a useful plan, effort, or way we can support the women of Ghana that would eliminate the tax on women. This is the part that we had mentioned in round one.
Thank you. So we are hoping that the government of Ghana would enforce laws to address a smooth menstrual hygiene and health for all women and girls, especially in deprived communities, in some of these ways. One, prevention of the prejudice against women and girls by changing social norms that justify the myths and stigmas around periods. So we want the government of Ghana to find ways and means to prevent these prejudice against our girls and women surrounding periods. Then to rural poverty is an inhibiting factor which prevents most women and girls from having access to hygiene kits, such as sanitary pads. As such, provide specifically needed technical and vocational training, business and life skills, so these women and girls can earn a decent living and to become more productive and active members of their communities. This measure will prevent the prevailing canker known as sex for parts. I'd like to tell you about sex for parts happening in Ghana. Sex for parts is where young women and girls give themselves out voluntarily, and in some cases under duress, to preying men in exchange for money to buy sanitary pads. That is the sex for parts happening in Ghana. So, we'd like the government of Ghana to train our girls so they become so they can earn a decent living. So they don't have to give themselves out to men in order to get money to buy these hygiene kits. And then make accessible safe sanitation facilities such as toilets and hand washing areas in our rural communities. Another critical angle that must also be looked at is encouraging the local production of menstrual materials like the sanitary pads and tampons by exempting taxes for companies who produce sanitary pads and materials, as well as provide incentives for these companies to establish factories for mass production in Ghana. Then our educational system. Our school curriculums from elementary to tertiary should include compulsory study of menstrual health and hygiene to open up the minds of both the girl child and boy child in their puberty stage in the form of hygiene in health clubs and societies. So my NGO that I'm volunteering with, the Girl Child Hygiene, we have some schools, we have created girl child hygiene clubs over there to enforce that. So we are hoping the government of Ghana would also enforce these and make this compulsory in every school in Ghana. It will be most prudent that the government of Ghana, through the Ministry of Gender and Social Welfare, takes up the cost so that we can protect our young women and girls and ensure that they get better in society. In the end, through education on menstruation, healthy menstrual hygiene management, elimination of the import tax on menstruation materials, and the prevention of the unprecedented biases surrounding periods, will provide a roadmap to end the struggles and fears women and girls face in Ghana and different parts of the world. So it is in this regard, again, I repeat that the Girl Child Hygiene Organization, with its No to Sex for Pads campaign, is helping to keep these vulnerable girls in school during their period. So since our inception in 2021, the No to Sex for Pads campaigns has impacted over 1,000 girls across rural Ghana. So our recent donation was in Akuse Methodist JHS in rural Ghana in the Eastern region, with 116 sanitary pads and sanitizers given out to these girls with menstrual health and hygiene sensitization messages to both the girls and then the boys. So I would also like to call out on more agencies and platforms as this to get the necessary backing that is needed to help push out a collective agenda on the removal of these taxes on women. At the end of the day, the goal is not just to win solidarity and support, but connect with that young girl out there who cannot afford sanitary pads and has to skip class to avoid the prejudice and stigmas that menstrual cycle comes with. Thank you.
Thank you. Wow. Wow. Okay. I appreciate that. Knowing that there is a huge deficit in Ghana, we have to begin to set up something with the Ministry of Health. And I think one of the questions at the end, if we have time to get to, states that all of us need to form a coalition and maybe a NGO coalition that will be the voice to the Ministry of Health to get these programs in order. I know each of us individually is doing our part, but together, I think that question that was mentioned is that fist. You know, each of us together can do something, but if we use that fist, we can allow a lot more to be done. So I like that question, and thank you, Nancy from NYU for posing that. Madam Laurencia says Queen's Royal Care. Okay. I don't know that question. Madam Laurencia, if you can just pose the question to the chat box, we'll be able to get you through. The next question comes from Madam Boateng. She is our midwife and a masterclass on menstrual health advocacy and educator. So your question, other than just send money, please speak to a useful plan and effort as to how we can support the underserved women of Ghana that would allow access to close the gap.
Okay, ma'am, thank you so much. So now the irony is now there is no money to even send to these girls. So they're not even going to get the money to buy these sanitary pads, and it's so pathetic. Now NGOs are not able to go out to rural communities because of the high taxes on sanitary pads. It's not sustainable now. But being a midwife, my focus is on the health of these girls. And I would say that we should educate them on how to use hygienic materials. If you're unable to get the disposable sanitary pads for them, we can do our best to train them to do these reusable sanitary pads, teach them how to use them and how to wash and dry them so that it will be beneficial to them. Because of course we can't continue to give them disposable sanitary pads every time. We don't have money. So I would say that we would have to train them and give them access to education. And also we'll need to train them to become financially independent so that they don't fall on these men for sex for parts thing. So we'll need to train our girls to become financially independent. And we should invest in menstrual health and hygiene. It shouldn't be just having forums to talk about it, shouting, no, but all hands should be on deck. It should be practical rather than just talking about it. We should have these multi-sectoral approach, private, public, individuals. They should all come in to support these girls, because we cannot begin to tell you the things that they go through just to have go through their period in a month. If a working class lady like myself is complaining about how taxes are high, then you can imagine the frustration a rural girl, a girl who is not working, a girl who has to depend on her mother, can imagine the frustration she will go through in a month just to see a blood, something that she should go through with pride. Now she sees this as a burden. So we should invest in menstrual health and hygiene. All hands should be on deck. And also we should leverage on the collaboration among sectors. As we have Madam Pamela Abe, we have Lady Juliet, we have Madam Bilkis. We should all come together, as you rightly said, to form a common front to fight this. The SDG 17 says partnership for the goal. It's true, we can do it individually, but we are more powerful when we do it together. So I'd say that if possible, all the NGOs fighting this menstrual health and hygiene advocacy can come together so that we all fight this canker. And at the end, we would say that we want to create a world where no woman or girl would have to be left behind because she bleeds. You shouldn't do that. Thank you.
You're most welcome. Thank you. Wow. And that, I tell you, that will always be, Madam Abby has me on that one, because that statement will always be a grand statement in my mind. After 30 years in obstetrics and gynecology, that was the most profound statement that I have heard in years. And thank you so very much for having that. Give me that gem. You really taught me something that day. I am going to ask that we have gems that we have to drop, and that is from the audience. So what we're going to do is for 30 seconds, and rightfully timed 30 seconds because of the time here. We have a few dignitaries among us. We have Ambassador Andrew Ramjohn, who is the mission ambassador to Trinidad and Tobago, who is joining us, who is defending the rights of women through the understanding of the role of men in that. And then we have Madam Ambassador, who do we have here? I thought she was here. Yes, Madam Alana King is here. And she is also an ambassador. She is a diplomatic ambassador in Trinidad and Tobago, and she is here as well. So we're going to welcome Madam Ambassador first, ladies first. If you could unmute your mic. And I just want you to give us 30 seconds of great wisdom that you want to drop for the students at Columbia, Fordham, and NYU, as well as the well over 900 viewers to this on the CSW stream. So Madam Ambassador, if you could unmute your mic and please give us your wisdom today.
Hi, Dr. Amina.
Yes.
Yeah, I was not sure if you were calling on Kling. Good day, everybody. Okay, good. So my piece of wisdom on this comes from my grandmother, and I take great concern with this sex for pads issue. And I remember becoming a young lady in the Caribbean, and my grandmother told me the story of when there was a period when sanitary pads did not exist. They did not have anything to buy. So she said in her day, they used soft cotton squares of cloth, and they would use them and change them often, rinse them, and that is what they used. And she said you had to have so many in order to be discreet about your period in those days, because it was something that could easily soil. And I can understand where the problem comes in, because now you have girls in school, you have women out there, they are working, and you cannot have soiled clothing. So the sanitary pads are so necessary, especially when the females are in the eye of the public. The cotton squares can be used maybe at home, but definitely not in public. It will be undignified. That's my bit.
Thank you. Just to remember the past, how far we've come. Yes, thank you so much. I do remember my grandmother saying the same thing. I remember her saying that it was socks for her. She would cut out the socks, especially socks from young children, where she could be able to measure the size, you know, the smaller the sock for the area. And then it got to T-shirts, where my grandfather's old T-shirts were cut into strips, and those strips were folded over. And she said it was wrapped around the crotch of the underwear. And just listening to that and knowing that I grew up with Always and Tampax and all of the things that came along by the time I came along. I'm dating myself when I say these things, but even when we had the sponge back in the late 60s, early 70s, okay. But when that was a big thing, I remember that, and I remember that well, and I remember the women having to say that. So you're bringing me back a little bit, and I thank you so very much for that. Just a remembrance of how far we've come. Thank you. Ambassador Andrew Ramjohn, the voice of the men in this. Give us a few seconds of that wisdom so that we can hear what you remember or what wisdom you have for women coming up dealing with this issue.
Hi, Dr. Amina Ali. It is so great to be at least listening in to this one. I so wanted to add my voice, but I'll add it in this manner. And thank you for giving me that opportunity. Needless to say, you know, as a guy, I didn't have a grandmother teaching me about sanitary pads or anything like that. But as time goes on, you know, hands-on, of course, you know, and I have listened to these ladies, and I mean, there's not any one of them who spoke today that I do not agree with. So in conclusion, you know, on putting it all together, I would have to say that I agree in increasing access to affordable menstrual products, improving education on menstrual health and hygiene, and working to eliminate the gender bias that often results in higher costs for female products and services. We must also work to ensure that girls and women have access to adequate sanitation facilities in schools, workplaces, and public spaces so they can manage their periods with safety and dignity. And I also want to just close this off by saying that, you know, I would like to urge us all to recognize the impact of gender bias and inequality on the financial burden that young girls and women face. We cannot achieve true gender equality without addressing this issue head on. So let us continue to work together to eliminate the need for a budget to bleed. Thank you so much, Kamla, and ensure that all girls and women have the support and resources they need to thrive. Thank you so much, Dr. Ali.
No, thank you, Ambassador. I really appreciate you, and I appreciate your insight to this. See, Madam Abby, I told you that that statement is going worldwide. Now it's in Trinidad. I'm going to read a few here. Ambassador Lady Patience, I'm happy to observe and give my support, though I have a very tight schedule. Best wishes to everyone. She is a very true diplomat to women's issues, and she has been truly a great support. So thank you so much, Lady Patience. Pamela, Lady Abby, Madam Abby, excuse me, said, let's join the Girl Child Hygiene No Sex for Pads campaign. Absolutely. Madam Laurencia actually quoted that. So she's returning that favor and reposting that. So thank you so very much for that support. We have one or two questions here that I really want to get to, but in the limit of time that we have, I don't think we'll be able to. So ladies, I want to thank you so very much for your time today. CSW is flagging us and letting us know we have like literally 2 minutes left to close out this link. So what I'd like to do is just welcome each of the panelists to check your email. By the time you get off of this, you should have a digital thank you to from all of us to all of you to allow us to understand how important and how precious this is. I did promise Fordham, yes, I will answer you. This will be a part 2. We have to have a part 2 to this. We didn't have enough time here, but CSW needed the information. I wanted to make sure these women were heard and their voices were elevated. To the 1,300 people that are here today, thank you, Michelle, for that stat, that heard your voice today. I want to thank you, Madam Abby, Madam Boateng. We have Madam Lady Juliet, and of course, Dr. Williams. I want to thank you so very much for being here today. To all of the diplomats that came today, thank you so very much. And for those that came to just support, God bless you, because we need your support and we need you to continue to hear and listen to the things that are happening with women and girl children. So to Madam Ambassador, Dr. Bilquis Williams, we say your name. Lady Juliet Adansi, we say your name. Madam Sarah Boateng, we say your name. And Madam Pamela Abbey, thank you so very much. We say your name today, and we thank you so very much for the time that you gave to us today on this program. If you would, Madam Boateng, could you close us out in prayer?
Okay, sure. Please, we are praying. Lord, we thank you so much for today. We thank you for these people that you have blessed us. We thank you for helping us have this great discussion. We ask that, Lord, you grant us the wisdom, you give us the understanding to be able to initiate these things that we've spoken about in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen, amen, amen. I thank you so very much. I have Dr. Bilquis up here, but she wasn't for the prayer. I did want to announce that Madam Bilquis just gave to me the understanding that the Federation of International Gender and Human Rights is coming to Nigeria officially as an embassy. And I want to thank her so very much for opening that door, for allowing that to happen, and to allow a physical brick and mortar embassy to come to the country of Nigeria. We're going to be working with Ghana and Pakistan, and Trinidad and Tobago is next to come with a brick and mortar for fire. And we want to thank each and every one of you. So we're letting you know that there is going to be a resource for this, because as the embassies are built, this is where the supplies and the subsidies will be coming. So there will be an encouragement of those that are going to be able to get some of the supplies from the US to your country to be able to distribute. And that is our goal as a representative of this mission. So I want to thank all of you for allowing this to happen. Ghana, you are coming up. I guarantee you, you're going to have a brick and mortar there so that we can send supplies to that embassy for your use. So thank you again. For more information, please reach out to FIRE. This is our website, fire.org. It is really simple, FIGHR.org. Click on that link. Email us if you have any questions. If there's anything that you want to know, or if you have any questions about our upcoming events that are coming for CSW or anyone's further. And of course, coming soon, the first and the only higher learning institution and university for gender and human rights. That is Harbor Heritage University. Click on that link as well and get to see some of the things that we're going to be doing. We are the first and only university that has a associate's, bachelor, master's, and PhD that will be in gender and human rights. And that is coming as of September of this year. So look for that as well. So we are doing big things, and it is because of you that we are able to continue this. These repeatable missions are for you. And if there's anything that we need to do for you, please reach out, let us know. Please reach out to each of the panelists today. Those students, please, these are your mentors. This masterclass was for you, and they are available to you. So please reach out to them as you are able. Thank you so very much for coming. God bless, and good day to you all. This recording will be available in about 72 hours. To anyone that asks, please register your name with my WhatsApp, and I will definitely send you the link to that. Thank you again. God bless each and every one of you for attending today and being a part of history that we have made today. And I thank all of you for coming and being a part of this CSW side event. To all of our panelists, thank you so very much for the things that you do every single day. And for those that shared this time with us, God bless you, and we'll talk soon.